ATBF families, I'm Katriel and I'm an intern with ATBF. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my life series, Life Lessons with Katriel. And I'm going to be continuing in the series, Interview Tips. We are in the second video today. And the video topic is how to stay organized for an interview. So one question that people commonly ask is, how do you prepare for an interview? I prepare for my interviews by reading the book, What Color Is Your Parachute by Richard Nelson Bowles, or watching sample interviews on YouTube, such as mock interview questions and answers. I prepare by practicing with friends and family. I also prepare by looking up sample interview questions, and there are many things someone can do to prepare. Some people even practice in the mirror and by recording themselves. I recommend you prepare by recording yourselves at least a few times so that you can catch mistakes you're making in the interview. And also you should record yourself and then show it to a trustworthy adult who's helping you to practice for this interview, and ask them what their advice is for that too. Also, I recommend you do mock interviews. Basically, like do an interview with somebody else, again, a trusted adult who has practiced interviewing. Doing mock interviews will help you to be more prepared for the interview because you'll be able to see where you messed up. You'll also be able to get some practices with interviewing, which will help you with the real interview and help with your confidence and all that stuff. How to organize all your materials you need for the interview. You want to lay out the clothes the night before your interview. You want to look up the company's dress code and try to match it by wearing the same formality of clothes. And you also want to make sure your clothes fit well and are not wrinkled. It's really important to not show up in a t-shirt and jeans, or a t-shirt and sweatpants, or a t-shirt, basically anything. You want to show up in nice clothes, like something like what I'm wearing would be a nice thing to wear to an interview. Yeah, if it's like a business casual. If it's more than a business casual interview, like it's more formal than that, you can figure out the formality of clothing by looking at the employers that you're trying to look at the website and see what clothes they're wearing. That's something I did for my last interview. I think I might have not done that very well, but anyways, I was trying to do that. You want to make sure you have your documents with you. You want to have your cover letter, resume, and job description. You want to have that in a binder or folder. You also want to have certifications or letters of recommendation. And you also want to have a blank sheet of paper and a pen so you can take notes. And especially if you get the job, that you will have an idea as to what you're supposed to do between the time the interview ends and the job starts. There's usually instructions about that. And then for the calendar, you want to make sure you put your interview on the calendar right away or as soon as possible. And then you also want to make sure you set reminders so that you get to your interview on time. It's really important that you get to your interviewer on time. It's also really important to get to work on time. And then for transportation, you will need to arrange your transportation at least a week ahead of time. This means if you need someone to drive you because you cannot drive yourself, ask people a week ahead of time to see if they can drive you. If they can't drive you, get a Lyft or an Uber, and then share your ride with trustworthy adults who care about you. There's an option on Lyft, or at least Lyft. I don't know about Uber. I don't really use Uber. And you want to share your ride just to make sure that you have safe transportation and that if anything goes wrong, people will know where you are. And then you also want to make sure you have reliable transportation. And then write out practice questions that will probably be asked of you in the interview. You can find out what questions will be on your interview by using books such as the book I mentioned earlier, which is What Color Is Your Parachute by Richard Nelson Bowles, and researching websites, if not reputable websites. Try to practice the interview questions that appear the most when you are researching. Practice at least 5 interview questions and have your answers memorized or at least well practiced before you go into an interview. When you are practicing your questions, write or highlight the questions in a different color. Like you could use like green and blue or whatever. Blue really is a comforting color for me. Aqua blue is really comforting for me. I use that when I'm like trying to calm myself down. So maybe you should like use that in your questions. That might help you calm yourself down a little bit. Yeah, and then another reason you want to highlight your questions and answers is it will help you remember the information you're trying to remember from the answers and questions for the practice interview, for the real interview. It'll also make it easier to see the difference between the questions and the answers. And then for how to organize your thoughts so you're prepared, you want to be confident. So you want to do like something like this for 5 minutes or like this. 5 minutes, basically you want to make yourself big for 5 minutes, and this is like in a bathroom or something so that no one can see you, especially your interviewer. The interviewer should definitely not be seeing you doing that. You want to make sure you're confident but not full of yourself and not timid too. And then you want to make sure you are positive and not saying negative things. And if they ask you about something negative about yourself, try and make that as brief as possible and then talk about how you're growing out of that. If you aren't growing out of that, then try and mention something positive that like you're doing really well. Focus on the positive. But basically, you want to be honest, but not exposing yourself too much. And then the questions for today are, what do you think are the most common interview questions? How do you get prepared and organized for an interview? And what books do you recommend for preparing for interviews? Thank you for watching and goodbye.